wanted to continue in the vein of what we were talking about last week, because we branched off a lot. We weren't able to go into it. Last week we were talking about the the ravishing effects of estrogen manifesting itself in women in the form of uterine fibroids, and also affecting our men in the form of enlarged prostate, as well as reduced fertility. And so that is something that is very dear to me. For the first 5 years of my life, I worked almost exclusively with women who had uterine fibroids. I consider it to be a silent epidemic. It is something that affects 8 out of every 10 women. And in order to bring it home, I always say, imagine going into a high school and finding 10 girls, lining them up, and then counting out 8 out of that 10. And that's how much of them will have uterine fibroid. That's what the statistics say. And this is something that is predominantly high among the Black population. And so in my practice, what I'm seeing now is very, very, very high rate of people of African descent now having issues with fertility. This was not an issue before. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why Africa is on the rise is because it has demographically the largest population of young people in the world. If you check China, if you check India, if you check Canada, if you check America, almost all of these countries are in a rapid decline because of infertility. These were, and so to many people that may not be significant, because but you know, for people in economics know the value of that, because they know that when a country has debt, that debt has to be paid off by the future generation. And so this is something that is very serious. It's very dear to me. So I've pretty much spent a lot of time championing the cause, bringing to the forefront the fact that this is not an epidemic that is worth mentioning, because it doesn't affect the other ethnicity. Let me put it that way. It doesn't affect the other ethnicities. So because it doesn't affect the other ethnicities, it is not a major concern. And what I'm also saying is that in the sphere of natural medicine, we have very, very, very effective tools, very effective arsenal. And that is also very important, because these tools are available to the poorest and the most vulnerable in the world all over. So, you know, last week I spoke a lot about the importance of indigenous Caribbean medicine, the need, the fact that Jamaica as a nation and the Caribbean as a nation, we have not done enough. We have not done well in, we said that we are independent. The Caribbean and Jamaica and the Caribbean was exploited primarily for its natural resources. All of these countries that are wealthy because of the natural resource of Jamaica. And you would think that from, you know, the minute we got independence, we would right away from the get-go begin to develop this. This is not the case. And so right now we have found ourselves in a very vulnerable position. What I'm advocating and telling persons is that your health is your responsibility. Do not leave it to the state. One of the reasons why I'm pushing this is because I'm pushing personal empowerment. In my field, I get the chance to see persons at their most vulnerable points, believe it or not. I get to see persons who have a lot of money, who at a particular juncture in their life, it means nothing. I get the chance to work with very, very famous person who, it's almost, you know, when you're going to some of these persons' houses, and you look on the walls, and you see who they know and who know them, and you see their achievement, and you look at them lying on a bed in a Pampers. It's really humbling. It makes you really wonder, you know, what's the purpose for life? What's the purpose for life? So this is what I'm talking about. A lot of persons, it may not be interested, it may not be important, because I found out that more people know more about that I can talk, because I was one of them. The average person know more about his bank account, know more about his car, I sat a very, very skillful lawyer, may know more about law than he does about his actual body. That was what I was confronted with. And I was very uncomfortable about that. And I had to ask myself the question, why is it that I know more about so many subject areas than I do about my own body? And I'm gonna start the show maybe from there tonight, because I'm talking about my experience. Why is it that people, because you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that people know so much about every other subject area and very little about their body, when that's the only asset that you really have? The only asset that you really have is your health, not your car. None of what you think you own, you really own until you don't realize until you get sick. When you get sick, you realize that the house that you are building, the cars, all of the wealth that you have, you suddenly realize that you are going to leave it and somebody else is going to get it. The only thing you really have is your... Yeah, so when I ask myself the question, why is it that the average person knows so much about almost every other subject area than they do about their body? The answer that I came up with is because it's not my responsibility. That's the doctor's responsibility. And so I want to start from there, because unless we fix this, we are not going to really be able to address health the way that we're supposed to. Because I love the Ministry of Health in Jamaica slogan now: your health is your responsibility. And that is so true. And from a very, very tender age, we were taught that our health is the responsibility of really brilliant people. So when we were going to school, we would hear a statement like, boy, that boy is really brilliant. I mean, he's going to be a doctor. What we are insinuating is that to know anything about your health, you have to be a really, really bright person. You have to be a really, really intelligent person. And then we say, oh, well, I'm not like that. So I leave that to those persons who are brilliant. I leave that to the medical doctors. And so that's where we really start a journey where we have an entire society who don't take their responsibility serious. And so because they don't take their responsibility serious, it is left to somebody else. So it's left to somebody else, and that responsibility, that is basically something very, very stupid to do. When I was studying, I remember I came up natural medicine. I remember I came up across a World Health Organization report that said, listen to this now, medical doctors are only correct in their diagnosis 1/3 of the time.
Wow.
1/3 of the time. Now, with all honesty and in being fair, that is not to say that medical doctors are not good at their diagnosis, because a lot of what a medical doctor uses to come to a conclusion as it relates to that diagnosis is the information that the client gives them. So when a client who doesn't know anything about his body gives vague or incomplete responses to questions, that helps the doctor to diagnose what's wrong with you. So for example, when the doctor says, so what about pain are you feeling? Well, me no know doctor, me only feel pain. The doctor studies pain and he knows that there are different types of pain. The different type of pain tell the doctor what and where you're suffering. So there is pain in the muscle that is different from pain in the bone and pain in the nerve. So when the doctor asks a question, when a client who is very in tune with their body and knows what is happening is able to give the doctor a good answer, that helps the doctor to help them. And so your health is really your responsibility. So when I talk about a lot of people being misdiagnosed, a lot of people not being diagnosed properly, a lot of that is not the doctor's responsibility really. And I mean, now we have a number of x-ray devices and so on and so forth that helps to reduce that curve. But for the most part, the doctor interacts with the client, asks the client questions. And so when the client, for example, don't know what is happening, then or gives vague answers or incomplete answers, then to a large extent that narrows down the tool that the doctor has to work with. And so one thing that we're promoting is your health is your responsibility, and the greatest weapon against sickness and disease is education. So I want to talk about fibroids, I want to talk about enlarged prostate, but I want to lay that foundation and I want to give thanks for this platform because a lot of time when you go to doctor, the word doctor comes from the root word doctrine. You know, when you go to church, we're all taught doctrine, and a doctrine is really a teaching. So a doctor, by functionality, not by definition, a doctor by functionality is supposed to be a teacher. So a doctor should spend more time teaching you than they do prescribing. So in a nutshell, this is the job of a doctor. You go to a doctor, and a doctor is a paid professional in their respective field. So you, Rattigan, you come to me, and I ask you a number of questions. And based on those questions, my job is to first educate you. So you said to me, so well, I'm having diarrhea. My job as a doctor is to understand what are the breaches, what are the protocols that are possible that when breached would result in diarrhea. So I'm gonna ask you, did you drink any water that was from any questionable source? I'm trying to find out if it was your diarrhea is of bacterial origin. I'm trying to find out if you took medication. My job is not to quickly write a prescription. My job is to find out which laws of health, which protocol you broke for you to have a diarrhea. Then my job is to inform you. And this is what a doctor is supposed to do. They're supposed to inform you as it relates to what are the options that you have. In Jamaica, I don't know about in the US, but in most parts of the world, a doctor function as if they're God, as if they can't be wrong, as if they know it all. Their job is to guide you as to the best professional option for you. And of course, that should include natural options as well. And so, you being informed, one of the first things I'm saying, you being informed is, first of all, by going to a doctor, if it's a private doctor, you are paying that person to first of all guide you, not to tell you, but to guide you as to what is the best option as it relates to my health. So you should go armed and prepared with questions. One of the worst thing is for a client to show up as a blank slate, knowing nothing and expecting, based on the fact that they're having discomfort, for the doctor to just fix them. So these are some of we have created a lot of wrong approaches, and we are building on them, and because of that, we have a major problem that we do have now. So one of the things I'm advocating is what is called indigenous Caribbean medicine, which is medicine, the fact that the Caribbean has a medicine that has been practiced for hundreds of years, and that is unique to us. That is a combination of African medicine, African spirituality, English, Spanish, the different colonizers, as well as the native persons that were here before. Let me just pause there.
Estrogen levels that have gone way up. And I have done some research in that space. I like what you talk about. I have learned, amongst others, that the sanitary towels that get thrown into the sewer system, that gets the water goes to the plant for that kind of water to be recycled. I have learned that a part of some of the reasons why estrogen has gone up is because of these sanitary towels. It is not the only or the reason why estrogen has gone up. I also know that with the hormonal imbalance that comes with the food that we eat, the junk food, as well as inflammation and many of those things that would create an imbalance for the female, and also us men having a little bit of estrogen that you see expressing itself as gynecomastia. Those guys who have a deficiency or whose testosterone levels have gone down. I want to find out how far true is it that yes, the water that we drink has a lot of estrogen amongst others, and that impacts on the fibroid. I haven't spoken about the diet yet. I'm interested in finding out if there's some semblance of truth to this theory.
All right, so what you're saying is absolutely true. We spoke about that last week. We spoke about a number of items in which forms of estrogen, estrogen mimicking chemicals are found. But let me just, before we even talk about that, because I like to talk about what a lot of us can relate to. Now, think back. In the last 50 years, no, I'm 46, so less than 5. In the last 30 years, one of the common denominators that we can all relate to is even worse than the paper is plastic. The invention of plastic, or the insurge of plastic, has been one of the most devastating invention to mankind ever. The invention of plastic has been one of the most devastating invention to the human race. Plastic. Now, when you talk about water, here in Jamaica, we have almost replaced metal pipes with plastic pipes. So when you talk about the amount of plastic pipes that carry water into homes, and these plastic pipes carry water into plastic tanks. So our water used to be stored in concrete tanks or metal tanks. Our water is now stored, the majority of Jamaicans, our water is stored in plastic container. When you talk about utensils, kitchen utensils, when you talk about in the medical field, even the container in which medical is kept. In years past, it was absolute that nearly 100% of our medicine was in jar containers. If there was, there are a number of things that we should throw out of our houses, but one of the most devastating thing that we have in our house is the amount of plastic. And so I grew up seeing my grandmother keeping water in jars, glass jars, or potted jars, or enamel jars. Our utensils were either enamel plates or wood. Now we have all of that being replaced with plastic. And so almost at the same time we see an insurge in plastic, we see an insurge in cancer. And we see an insurge in most other diseases. And so one of the most devastating thing that we can, and BPA, which is one of the chemicals found in plastic, is one of the maybe 200 carcinogenic properties found in plastic. And so not only has plastic affected or caused fibroids or cancer, it has also caused a host of psychological issues. As much as even the syringe that medicine used to be injected used to be glass or metal, it's now replaced with plastic. And so, economically, it has made a lot, it has done revolutionary, but it has been to a very, 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 at a very high cost. And so, yes, estrogen is one of the, our estrogen mimicking chemicals is one of the chemicals found in plastic, and it has contributed significantly to our rapid decline in health. Right. So let me just give a few examples. Let me start with women, for example. Most women don't know what a healthy menstrual cycle should look like. Right? So a healthy menstrual cycle should be on time, and it should be bright red. So the color of the I'm not going into much details, but the color of the blood during that cycle tells you a lot, because the body talks to us, the body tells us what's happening. So for example, a lot of women who have ovarian cysts would have noticed that before it reached that point, their menstrual cycle was very dark. Very dark. The blood would be near purple. Because what the body does, the body communicates to us. So what the body does is that the body escalates communication. So for example, what the body does is that the body gives us a message, and the intention is for us to pay attention. When we don't pay attention and it is ignored, the body has to escalate that condition. And the body continues to escalate until attention is gained. The body knows that the last escalation that people respond to is pain. So the blood turns from bright red to dark red. Woman doesn't pay attention. Then it starts to get clotty. Woman doesn't pay attention. Then it starts to you start to grow cysts, because what's happening basically is there's an accumulation of toxin, and because you're not paying attention, a cyst in the body is what the body does. Because the body does two things. The body heals itself very well, and the body protects itself. I'm gonna tangent a little bit to give context to it. A lot of what we call dis-ease is the body's way of getting our attention. A lot of what we call dis-ease or discomfort is how the body gets our attention. So I tell people, our disease is not our enemy. Disease is not your enemy. Your diabetes is not your enemy. Your high blood pressure is not your enemy. All of these is the body's defense mechanism of telling us that something is wrong. Enlarged prostate is not your enemy. Uterine fibroids is not your enemy. It's the body's way of telling you that something is wrong. Usually, once you correct what is wrong, the body heals itself. Every doctor knows that. So, when you don't pay attention and you go to your medical professional, that medical professional has to do so much thinking, and they have a next client to come in. So you make their job difficult. When you don't give them clear, decisive, incisive information, then they have a vague understanding what's happening, and that leads them to a vague conclusion or a vague diagnosis. So when the woman is able to say that my blood was bright red after 3 weeks, and then after 4 weeks I noticed it started to change color, all of that information guides your doctor as to how to help you. It gives them information, because the body, the tissues talk to us. So as a herbalist, this is what I do. My job is to interpret what the tissues of your body is telling me, one, and then two, it is now to match that with what the plants tell us that they have. Because plants also tell us the medicines that they have, and they tell us them just by tasting it. Just by tasting a plant, the plant tell you what chemicals or what medicines it have available. So my job is to now match the medicine in the plant with what the tissues in the body is telling you that it needs. So the body forms cysts and tumors in an attempt to create a waste receptacle in the body. So the body says, for example, ovarian cyst, the womb is overrun by toxin. So the body reasons and says, well, at this rate, this toxin is going to kill me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a waste receptacle in that part of the body, so that I can send the toxins there, so that I can now control it. And then as it begins to grow, it begins to get painful. And I mean, it's amazing. The scripture says we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And then what happens now, usually when a cyst is formed, what the body wants to do is the body now brings that cyst to the surface, where it now ruptures and all of that toxin leaks out. Think about a cancer, tumor. That's what the body is doing. What happens in the form of a cancer? I don't want to be too simplistic, because there are different types of cancer, maybe in one of our shows, we'll talk about the different types of cancers, because there are different types of cancers that are caused by different things, and so they have to be treated by different things, by different herbs or different modality, different approach. But the body, let's talk about fever. Now, usually when we have a fever, and most of us, the minute we get a fever, we can't say anything about the fever, because the minute we get a fever, we take something to eradicate the fever. Most times we have a pain, we can't tell what type of pain, we can't describe the pain, because the minute we start to feel discomfort, we get rid of it. Most doctors will tell you, if you have a pain and it's bearable, don't get rid of it. When you understand that, when you're able to describe the pain, it tells the doctor whether it's a muscular pain, whether it's a nerve pain. It tells the doctor, it guides your healthcare provider as to how to respond, because you're able to describe the pain. Fever is how the body cooks bacteria. So let us say you have a bacteria in the body, and that bacteria is spreading. The body knows, because the body has intelligence. So the body knows that bacteria and certain pathogens can only survive at a certain temperature in the body. So what the body does is that the body turns up the heat. And what it is trying to do naturally on its own is to cook that bacteria. So one of the things that a fever is telling you is that your immune system is working. So again, in natural medicine, our ancestral way of approaching medicine is very different from Western medicine. It's holistic because it also involves the wisdom of the body. It's basically wisdom from within coming out. So being able to describe, being able to know your body. And I'll give you another typical one, very simple one: high blood pressure. Now, the average range of high blood pressure is based on averaging 120 over 90. 120 over 90 is the average normalcy of a person's pressure. Now, everybody is different. There are persons who their normal rate is 150, 160, 170. Now, imagine your normal rate is 150 over 110. That's your normal rate. And you go to the doctor, and the doctor is now going to treat you with a one-cap-fit-all approach. They're going to use an averaging system to determine your normalcy or to determine your state of your health. Now, if it is that you were monitoring your blood pressure, so if it is that you were monitoring your blood pressure over a protracted period of time, that information you would be able to supply to your doctor. The doctor would know, okay, this is a person whose normalcy is high, or the inverse is also true. This is a person whose normalcy is low. All of this information is your responsibility. It's not your doctor's responsibility. And so the more responsible we become of our health is the better we are at providing our healthcare providers with the tools they need to better help us.
Go ahead, Dan.
That's so true. My area of interest is phytochemistry. I manufacture tinctures for myself and a close friend, a group of friends of mine. Either it would be your hot water extraction, or your oil extraction, or your
glycerin, alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol extraction. One of those things that I was talking this morning I was at the filling station. They were telling me about someone who had high blood pressure. So I say to this woman, she's related to my young wife. I was saying to that particular person, when was the last time that gentleman ate a beetroot? He says, no, we've been asking him. The guy does not eat beetroot. And I just said to Babsi, beetroot has nitrates. It's a vasodilator. High blood pressure means the vasculature is constricted. If that gentleman, you can organize a blender and blend, or a juicer and give him a glass of beetroot juice, raw beetroot juice. The nitrates might add value, but I said to look, I don't know what causes that particular person's high blood pressure, but for the fact that there's high blood pressure, it means the vasculature, there's constriction somewhere, somehow. It might be as a result of many other things, the high cholesterols of the world and that kind of stuff. But long story short, when you know what the challenges are, you are correct. You are able to help yourself to say, every morning on an empty stomach, let me take one beetroot and one carrot, dice it, put it in a blender, and take that stuff to be able to get your nitrates from the beetroot, as well as your vitamin A from the carrot. You are able to help yourself steadily as a lifestyle, that would then inform one of those things, how your veins transport or allows the flow of blood from to and fro your heart and everywhere where your blood is wanted. In the case of erectile dysfunction, when we men don't or have that deficiency of your nitric oxide, in most instances you would find us being victims of erectile dysfunction. So the point that I'm driving home to is, when you understand how the system works, when you know the formula, you are able to win using the formula against itself in the event where there is a depression, where the formula is involved.
Right. And based on what you just said a while ago, because again, this is where medical doctors and the medical system comes in. It's very good as it relates to diagnosing. It's very good in terms of having certain diagnostic tools which help persons to identify. Because of course, what you are talking about is high blood pressure when it is caused by arteriosclerosis. But there are a number of other factors that can cause high blood pressure, which is why persons should never self-diagnose themselves, which is why persons should seek a healthcare provider. There are persons, of course, who will take the same beetroot, who have hypertension, who it will give them a headache because of the high levels of iron. There are persons who have hypertension because of low potassium. Some persons just need to increase their potassium and they are okay. There are some persons who have high blood pressure because their iron level is high, or low blood pressure because their iron levels are low. None of this should be based on speculation. It's important for persons to go to their doctor. When you talk to your healthcare provider, giving them those vital information allows them to know how to help you. You'll see why some persons take 2 or 3 different types of blood pressure medication. Some persons' high blood pressure is because the heart rate is low. Nothing to do with the vein, nothing to do with potassium, nothing to do with sodium. It's just that there's a defective heart valve that might cause their heart to be at a very low rate, which causes the blood pressure to go up. See, so there are so many reasons that can lead to one problem, which is why it's dangerous when somebody say, "Hey, I had this problem and I went to this doctor or herbal doctor and they gave me this herb, so just go and take this too." Everybody is different. We can't use a one-cap-fit-all approach, and these are some of the things that have led to natural medicine getting the flogging that it is getting. These are some of the reasons why so many healthcare providers who are trained to look at things in a very empirical, clinical way to disagree with herbal practitioners, because they know from a causative perspective that there are many factors that can cause a particular ailment. So again, I just believe that a lot of practitioners in natural medicines have been very irresponsible. And so they have contributed to why maybe we don't find more medical inclined persons wanting to approach this as a lucrative, but as a effective form of healthcare. I want to attract scientists. I want to attract intellectuals. I want to attract medical persons, because we have to first understand that medicine started out by extracting the medicines out of plants, and then it went on to synthesizing the chemicals found in plants. Some of the most effective drugs are synthetic forms of what is found in plants naturally, you know. And so it's for our community here in Jamaica. I believe the University of the West Indies has not done us justice. How can we say that we are an independent nation with so many brilliant people when we don't have a medicine of our own? We are not able to take care of our own people. We have to depend on medicines coming from outside. I don't think we have done well. I don't think that it's an achievement in independence for us to be truly, for us to value the education that we have had. Because we said that we have left slavery, we have now become educated. That education should translate in independence. Start out by saying that whenever someone talks about herb, it should first of all always be received as general information. First of all, it should always be received as general information, because all of what he's saying is true. The knowledge that he has is because he has been doing that for over maybe 30, 40 years now. And his knowledge is what we call traditional knowledge. This is knowledge that has been passed down to him from generation to generation. When you talk about clinical trial, he would have been boiling and using those herbs repeatedly for years, and he would have gotten that information maybe from hundreds of years before. So of course, as it relates to the efficacy of the herbs themselves and what they do, then definitely he's on point and he's correct. However, for a person to take it, this is where the thing now. You may have high blood pressure, because a lot of the products that he promotes is for masculine development. And when you talk about masculine development, one of the major causes, and there are a number of factors that causes men to have low performance. One of them is blood flow. Now, when you talk about blood flow, you don't want to take something to increase your blood flow if you have an underlying cardiovascular issue. Another thing also is that it may be that it's not that you can't take it, but in what amounts. So this is where consultation is important, because anything that can help you can potentially harm you, can potentially hurt you. Herbs are typically divided into two major groups. There's what we call the therapeutics, and then there's what we call the nutritional. Nutritional herbs are herbs that have what is called a low alkaloid content. So these are herbs, because alkaloid is one of the chemicals that are found in plants that can damage the liver. Those herbs that have high alkaloid content are herbs that can damage the liver. Now, how important is that information? Now, that information means, and I'll qualify, a lot of the plants that are medicinal when they are mature are actually nutritional when they are young. So let me give you a plant like Spanish needle, or even callaloo. Now, when a plant is young and tender, it means that the chemicals are certain chemicals, the chemicals are not in high levels in it. So you can eat it and eat a lot of it and it doesn't affect you. However, when the plant matures, and even for some plants, even without them being mature, even when they are very young, their alkaloids content is very high. So it means that you can take them, but you have to take them in low dosages, and they have to be dried. They have to be dehydrated. Because if you don't, then it can be harmful to you. I said to the person, what's the difference between food and poison? The difference between food and poison are very well may just be dosage. Certain herbs taken at a certain dosage is just food grade. But taken at a particular grade, it becomes, if I get the time, I'll talk, not on this show, but another show, I'll talk about how Canada is using this knowledge against us and why what I'm saying is so important. But what he is selling is that he's selling medicines in the form of food. And so our medicine is supposed to be our food, and our food is supposed to be our medicine. But again, I just want to say that all of the claims that he is making about those herbs are true, and they are based on traditional knowledge. But it is how we use that knowledge that can be potentially what is dangerous. Right. So as I said, this is something that we have not done enough work on, especially here in Jamaica. And this is one of the things that I'm working to see change. That we need to see what is called a structured system of practicing our medicine, a structured system that is uniform. So if you were to go to one practitioner here in Kingston and go to one in St. Thomas and go to one in Mobile, there's uniformity in terms of the knowledge and uniformity in terms of the practice. We don't have that, and because we don't have that, what we have is a ad hoc system that again result in not being respected. Even though there are so many benefits and even though there is so much wisdom, it's not being respected because it's not been deemed or respected enough to put any resource in putting together a system like that. Now, as I talk about fibroid, because I know we talk about enlarged prostate, we talk about uterine fibroids. Again, we say that there is estrogen. So if we're going to tackle enlarged prostate, for example, we have to look at what is happening in the man's body. When we reach a certain age of puberty, our body goes through certain physical and chemical changes. Now, that chemical change does not end at puberty. When we reach, let's say about age 50, we start to go through another, about 45, 50, we start to go through another stage in our life, and it affects us psychologically and it affects us physically. So you'll notice, for example, that one, we become prone to more diseases. We start to have musculoskeletal diseases, we start to have cardiovascular diseases, we start to have digestive diseases. One of the reasons for that is by the time we reach about age 45, 50, Herb, one thing that happens to us is that our liver function is reduced by about 50%. Our liver function is reduced by about 50%. Now, the liver has over 2,000 functions, with about 200 of those functions being primary functions. So I want to not just talk about the problems, I want to give people some solutions now. What are some of the reasons? Ask yourself the question, and I know you say you're a practical person. Why is it that when people reach a certain age, they just start to get sick? Why is it that sickness is also associated with age? Why? We normally typically don't see young people get sick. One of the reasons why we don't see people get sick when they're young is because their liver is functioning at full capacity. The liver is able to protect itself. The body is able to heal itself because the liver is able to carry out most of its function. Once you hit 45, 50, then you just start to rapidly decline. Why? Because something happens in the body. One of the things that happens is that the liver function, so if you're eating, exercising, and this explains why we find some people who are regimental in their diet, regimental in their exercise, regimental in their health, just get sick. Why is it that they get sick? Well, one of the reasons for that is because the liver function is cut by 50%, which means that the things that you could eat and get away with, the chemicals that you could use on your skin and use in your ear and it didn't matter, all of a sudden it now begins to matter. And knowing this is also very important because there is a protocol that I recommend to almost everybody. It's called cleansing the liver. Cleansing the liver. So almost everybody in the world can benefit by simply cleansing their liver. And there are different ways to cleanse the liver. So if you have infertility issues, if you have digestive issues, if you have cancer, if you have so many issues, nearly every issue that you can identify that you have, or somebody who's watching right now, all of it goes back to one organ in the body, and that is the organ of the liver. And last week I dropped it, but I didn't talk about it. I said you can go all over the world. You'll get a specialist in the penis, the urologist, specialist in the vagina, gynecologist, a specialist in the ear, the throat, the neck, the teeth, the foot, the heart, the kidney. Every part of the body has a specialist. Except guess what? The liver. No, what I'm saying to you, they may want to kill me for this. They literally will want to kill me for this. Because when modern medicine was being invented, a deliberate decision was made when modern medicine was being invented. And that deliberate decision was never to create a specialist in the liver. If there is a liver specialist, nearly every other specialist dies for hunger. No other doctor can work. No other doctor can make money. If people take care of their liver, it's difficult for you to get sick. So the liver is also one of the organs that people know the least amount. The liver is one of the only organs that has regenerative properties. You can cut a section of the liver out. You know, they're doing studies in how to understand life and how to study how to extend life. And to do that, what they're doing is that they're studying the lizard, because lizards are one of the few animals that have regenerative ability in their tail. You cut off a lizard tail and it grows back. So they are studying what is in the lizard tail to make it grow back, to understand how to unlock the secret to longevity, how to extend life. Now, what I'm saying is that there is an organ in the body, the liver, where you can cut out 1/3 of it and it grows back. The key to understanding longevity is the liver. The liver was not always called the liver. The liver at one time was called the lifer, because, hear this, the quality of your liver determines the quality of your life. The quality of your liver determines the quality of your life. If your liver is in poor health, you are in poor health. If your liver is in good health, you are in good health. The closest we come to a liver specialist is, guess what? A pathologist. Because when a pathologist wants to determine the cause of death, they have to go into the liver. Because the liver is like the black box. You know, when a plane crashes and they want to find out what caused the plane to crash, they have to say, let's find the black box, because that black box has all the information that we need about that plane. Well, guess what? The liver is the black box for the human body. Everything that you ate lies contained in your liver, even though it's not in your colon. Every chemical and medication that you used a month ago, 6 months ago, even though it's not in your colon, it's still recorded in your liver. So we're talking now about how to begin to take care of ourselves. In the Bible or in the scriptures, you will find that there is a pseudoscience built around the liver. There's a pseudoscience built around the liver. That is how mystical the liver is. And so, taking care of your liver, number one, taking care of your liver is the first thing that you can do to begin to take care of your health. So, for example, I do what is called a liver flush. I do it 3 times every year. And that is by removing physical debris from the liver. If you've never done a liver flush, you'll be amazed. One of my good friends, most of the persons who we treat, most of the persons who we guide and who we help, well, the first thing that I guide them to do is to do a liver flush. I mean, persons with cancer and persons with diabetes and persons with arthritis and persons with infertility. Chances are, if you're sick, chances are part of that sickness is linked to your liver, because some of the important function of the liver is controlling harm. So the greatest weapon against sickness and disease is not medication, if it's not, it's education. So some of what I've done is I like for the liver flush video, the liver flush instruction, I've created a tutorial video that I'll make known. I'll give that link to you, because if you hear the door opening, it's my daughter coming in and she's making the liver flush. We make them, I mean, dozens of them per week. And that's why the secret to our success. If you come to, if you're in the States, you call Portland and you call anywhere that we work, just do your own research on the effectiveness of what we do. One of the secrets to that, and I don't hide anything, because that's one of the ways I'm going to preserve my life. One of the ways I stay alive is by sharing what I know. The medical persons who keep what they know as secret, they become vulnerable. I believe in decentralizing the knowledge, like Bitcoin. One reason they can't stop Bitcoin is because it's built on a decentralized platform. If I decentralize my knowledge, you get rid of me, there are 10 more coming, 15 more coming. Right? So I've built a video. I'll get that to your producer.